Today's focus is on blues, and I've started with ultramarine, indanthrone and cerulean chromium, which are some of the blues that are in my regular palettes. But I'll go through and show you some more. And in this case, I'm going through many of the blues available rather than just selecting a few that I use. I'm working with a Raphael Kolinsky sable brush in a size 4, and this is a pointed round. It's not the designer one, it has the orange tip on it, it's just the regular one. It's my favourite for swatching. So I've done ultramarine and indanthrone and cerulean. And ultramarine and cerulean are two that I use for skies and all sorts of things because they're slightly granulating and mixable. But indanthrone is a lovely rich blue. This is a slightly warm version. In some brands they're a little cooler. The next one is phthalo blue green shade. So I'm going to dampen the paper just so you can see how the colour moves on it, and then pick up just a touch of paint. So I just touch the brush into the palette and put a tiny bit of the colour on there so that I can see how it behaves on the paper. And this is a really powerful pigment. Terrific mixing colour. Beautiful on its own, but not always realistic. Since the watercolour activates each time you touch it into the palette, each time I touch it, it's getting a little bit thicker and richer. So you can see the full range. Phthalo blue red shade is a little bit warmer, or slightly closer to a mid-blue. It's made with PB 15:6 instead of 15:3. And then the third is a phthalo blue turquoise. So it's moving away from the blues and into the turquoise range. It's still made with a blue pigment. Next I'm going to show you French ultramarine. Now these are different brands. This is the Schminke French ultramarine. But in any brand, the French ultramarine tends to be warmer or purpler, more purple than the regular ultramarine. It will still be granulating, some brands more than others. And Schminke also has an ultramarine finest, which is hardly granulating at all. A rather dark and interesting and moody blue is Sodalite Genuine. Now this is verging on a grey because it's not a strong blue, but it is considered a blue. Highly granulating, really dark. And then this one is a variation of cerulean. So this is PB 35 instead of 36, and I've chosen the Winsor & Newton one for this. It's a bright version, where some are quite dull. Cobalt blue is a mid-blue. It's neither warm nor cool, as in it doesn't really lean towards green and it doesn't lean towards purple. So it's an in-between mid-blue. It's a beautiful colour, and while you can mix two together to make the same sort of hue, many people love this series 3 or 4, depending on the range, pigment. So it's expensive, but it's very beautiful. It won't go as deep as ultramarine. Manganese, genuine manganese is not readily available anymore. So mostly you'll find it as a hue, sometimes made with PB15 and white, and sometimes, as in this case, just PB15. Genuine manganese is bright and light and granulating, so that's what's trying to be replicated here. Old Holland was the last to have the pure manganese available commercially, so you can see them side by side. It is available from Dirty Blue in a very bright version of PB33. Mayan Blue Genuine is a slightly greeny blue, and I don't have a pan of this one, so it's from a dot card. It's a great way to try out different colours, but it's taking a little bit more to activate. Generally, indigo will be made with a blue and a black pigment these days, with a couple of exceptions. Natural indigo just isn't light fast. This one's made out of indanthrone blue and black. Prussian blue is a darker or deeper and less staining variation of phthalo blue. It's a hue that's easy to mix, so it isn't one that I tend to have in a palette. But you can see the PB27 Prussian blue. Lunar blue is a wonderfully granulating pigment mix. It has lunar black in it, which gives it this beautiful texture. Yinmen Blue was only discovered in 2009, and it's taken a bit of time for it to be available as a pigment. The original sample I tried some time ago was much darker and more granulating than this. But this one is available from Schminke, and a couple of others make it as well. So it's rather like ultramarine, but a new pigment. Lapis lazuli is very hard to find in a high quality. It can often be quite soft. It's the original colour that ultramarine was based on. Schminke has a version, but I find it's best used straight from the tube. The most beautiful version of this I've seen is from Zeki. That's the Afghan lapis. Next is Mayan Blue Dark. And then Blue Apatite Genuine. Vivianite is the next. It's another subtle bluey grey. As is kyanite. PB30 Blue Verdita is not a common one. This is a creamer colour. And the last one that I'm showing here is a beautiful cobalt blue deep. This is a Winsor & Newton colour. And I think the Yinmen blue is most like this. It's another expensive pigment. Cobalts are always expensive if they're genuine. And some people choose not to use cobalts. So there's a range of blues, and you can see that there's a lot that are similar. I tend to use ultramarine, cerulean, and phthalo blue, whether green shade or red shade, as my basic blues. I'll add another one for special effects, perhaps in Dance Throw if I'm doing a night scene. I might use sodalite if I want that beautiful granulation. The rest are lovely to see.